I'm here today with Sarah Allen, who is a director at the Mozilla Foundation. And we first met through the way that Mozilla supports artists like myself who engage with technologies and critical conversations around technology. And most recently this fall, Sarah organized a panel on artificial intelligence and feminism that I got to be part of in London in October. And we're speaking today as part of my residency with Gazzelli Art House, Gazelle.io, which is a digital art residency. And I'm using the opportunity to speak to women who use art, technology, or really I've opened it up to more and more people because I'm finding a lot of themes that Sarah and I explore in technology existing in other structures. So the thesis behind these conversations is that Sarah, by being who she is and doing the work that she does, there's almost an inherent feminism in it because she's bringing her perspective to, especially in tech, a world that doesn't have as many diverse voices, and she works a lot in that area as well. So Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit more and share who you are with some people in my community and more in the arts community.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm excited for this chat.
So why don't we start by you just sharing a little bit of your story, like where you, or maybe going backwards, like what it is that you do with Mozilla and how it is you got into that position.
Yeah, so my background is in events. I worked for various different organizations in the last 10 years. When I've been in London, I actually moved to London to work on the Olympic Games. And so I kind of wanted to be part and to build that. And I got to work on an incredible project for that event. And I've done a wide variety of events, from like hosting registration for swim meets and, Sunday dips, to like street festivals, to working on the Confederation Cup in Brazil. And I know nothing about football. And then also working with Secret Cinema and, working on like photo shoots and fashion shows. And so it's kind of been I've always been taking any opportunities that came forward, jumping in, being scared most of the time, but like willing to try and see what would happen. And the opportunity to work with Mozilla came up 6 years ago. I got a phone call from a production company asking me would I come on board and help them produce a tech fest, a technology festival in London. And I was very nervous, but as soon as they said that it was Mozilla and mentioned Firefox, I kind of was like, I wanted to be part of it. I've always resonated with the mission. I've used Firefox for a very long time. But yeah, I went in quite nervous and never identifying as a technologist, not really sure how I could participate in the kind of content piece. But my first year was very much focused on delivering the frame of the event, so the production. So, how people would move in and around the venue, and the glamorous side of like organizing lunches and like the travel and those kind of pieces. And so my very first MozFest was in 2013, and I just was not prepared for what I was going to engage in, and from a very positive aspect. It was this incredibly open, vibrant community that welcomed me into sessions, to talks, to conversations, knowing that I was part of the production team, knowing that I didn't have a background in technology, and we're just so welcoming and open. And that speaks to so much of what's been designed by Alan Gunn, Michelle Thorne, and Mark Sermon. And I was hooked. I loved that feeling of kind of learning and being part of something, and being just like listening to these really inspiring, creative, innovative people, and wanted to be part of what that experience they were designing and that future scoping that they were doing. Like, it felt like we could create change. We were going to be able to do anything that we possibly wanted to do as a group. The world was our oyster, or the internet was our oyster. And it's something that I've really strive to like build into every event that we do for MozFest and for Mozilla.
I was just going to say that so there's a lot of conversation about women who drop out of tech, and you came into tech through events, and Mozilla, I think you said you found, has been like one of the more welcoming corners of the internet. Can you talk a little bit more about why, now that you're in the tech world, you're definitely a technologist, you have a community that supports a lot of changes that the internet is, like we were just before this talking about Zoom and the work Mozilla is working with Zoom. I guess, what is it about that community that you think allowed it to be one that you could enter from a different industry?
Yeah, I think from the very start, in particular from Mozilla Festival, it was always designed from the perspective of, we joke saying that the schedule is never complete until we close the doors on Sunday night. And so it's that idea that you are able to participate and you are able to engage at your own pace and in your own way, and that you feel invited, and you see allies and you see friends and you see experiences that you want to be part of and that you can be part of. And so I think with Mozilla and with MozFest, we design from the perspective of many rather than the individual. The content is not designed by me, but like a huge group of volunteers who I would present like an issue or say like, this is the perspective of, Mozilla right now, and we're talking about lack of agency and transparency in AI, and what does the future of trustworthy AI look like? And I ask those volunteers, like, what am I not saying? What is Mozilla not saying? Who are we not talking about, and who should be part of this conversation? And so it's consistently looking to add more people into that conversation who should be there, who should be part of the decision-making process, who should be involved in like the creative parts and the design and the code and the build and how things are outlaid. And it's that striving to like bring as many people in as possible, that also it's that invitation, right? And so you see someone maybe sitting on the periphery of a session and like they saw me in my very first event and just saying like, come in and join, like pull up a seat, and we want you to participate, but we're not putting people on stages. We don't put the experts on a pedestal, but we kind of like look around the room and like really bring together interdisciplines, like different global participants, different ages. Like I love having a 12-year-old open a session for a group of adults who are like kind of looking around each other being like, am I in the right space? And then this 12-year-old delivers this incredible piece. It's that opportunity and that constant working towards creating space and invitations for others to be involved, and asking people who else should be here, right? Who else do we need to be here?
It seems like, especially having participated in your events at MozFest for I think 2 years now. I feel like it's been 3, but maybe it's only been 2. So for those who don't know, MozFest is Mozilla Foundation's annual festival, and you get like last year in London, how many people attended?
We had 3,000 people there over 7 days.
And with Mozilla being an organization and a company that's very focused on the future of the internet, making an internet that works for more people, keeping the private parts of the internet accountable. It's really interesting to see the way that you've translated what is technology and online community, and once a year bringing it together IRL in real life. Can you talk about that process of converting the values, the technical values, into physical space?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier this group of what we call wranglers who help us design the program. And we're really, presenting that technical perspective and then saying, how does this translate on the ground? When we're talking about kind of new technology or education, and what does that look like for people in their everyday lives? And so, we live so much of our lives online, and we should be able to be our full selves online. And so what are those issues that are facing us that maybe people feel like they don't have that space or that the safety net to be able to do that? And so it's looking for different perspectives, it's looking for different stories, and then also understanding how can we, or trying to tell that story in as many ways as possible. And so I think your artwork is a really, really great example of that. When I think about that kind of the algorithms in like Google, for me, I never thought it could be subverted. I thought it was just something that was handed down to me, and these were the search terms that were given to me, and this is what was going to be portrayed. And you were able to like take that story and say, no, actually, this is how I can control it, and this is how I can allow it to reflect what this means to me, what feminism means to me, what my art means to me, what frees carpet, and how that can subvert that kind of search. And so you're presenting your own perspective on how that technology works and how you can make it work for you and empower you. And that is what we try to do, is in many different ways of the event. And so yes, we have sessions where people put forward an idea and like workshops, but we do talks, but intentionally make the talks quite small so that it feels very personal. Lots of art, lots of installations, and then parties as well. Like that's the MozFest culture, like making sure that there's ways to interact, not just in a session, but how do you involve those hallway conversations where you are standing beside Tim Berners-Lee getting a coffee, and then you go and talk to him at his booth, or you get a chance to kind of meet people who are making a difference. And it's not always the bigger names that you read about in the newspaper, but those after school programs or those activists who are there at the event, maybe just participating in a variety of different ways.
It's interesting, you just brought up the term activist, and obviously I see the Mozilla Foundation in particular as being very activist, but I've been asked a lot about activism in interviews recently, and it's something that as an artist I'm always a little careful of, because I think that there's a lot of accountability that goes with the term that I think is really important, but I think it is when the like my work can very much be used for activism, and it comes from a place of caring about similar things to the Mozilla Foundation. And so it's nice that like at least once a year when I'm with you guys, I get to put on like my like complete activist hat, and like obviously I'm doing it through art, but then not just sort of subtly pointing to conversations, but sitting down and being part of conversations with you and with Irene and some of these other people that also exist in the art world. What are some other examples, people who are listening to this have a familiarity with my work, but what are some other people that you invite to MozFest, and what do they do? Like what else goes on?
So I think we a wider range of scope of people and like disciplines and ages as possible that we can invite. I think we definitely look for people who are doing really creative, innovative, radical work. And I think what you just shared about activism, it's like, yes, it's a really big term, and it's kind of hard to sometimes figure out how to relate it to like my own work or to other work, but it's like, what are these people advocating for? And if they're advocating for an open, free, and healthy internet, which is what we at Mozilla strive for, then I think it's really powerful to bring them in and have them connect with others who are working towards the same goal, but maybe are not using the same language or like calling it the same things. And I think I think using the talk that you did, feminism and AI at MozFest last year, we had, an art curator, we had you, an artist, we had a technologist, and then we had like a female rights advocate from everyone's coming at this from different perspectives, and
different geographies,
and in different ways, and also, not super comfortable using the word feminist for some people. What they were striving for equality and having that kind of more of a female participation in that technology and a variety of other areas. But again, they weren't using the same language as each other. And so that's why the conversation was so powerful, is because all the different perspectives and like how it relates to you in your own life, which was very different from the rest of the group of the panel, but that you're all really advocating and you're being an activist for the same thing.
And now that you've been with Mozilla for a number of years, how do you feel about just event production in with a foundation and a philosophy compared to, I don't know what kind of events you were doing before, but how does How does that
So
feel?
different. Like we come from, an open source background as an organization. So that kind of philosophy of open is part of what we do in our event structure. So making our kind of procedures as open and accessible as possible. We curate in the open using like various different tools from ZenKit to GitHub with various degrees of success. We want to try and make the decisions we make as accessible and understandable to as many people. And then there's a particular process we use in MozFest called federated design. For me, that means that it is not designing from one perspective, but from the many perspectives. And so while we start the year, there's just myself and the MozFest team thinking about what we want to do, we're constantly bringing people into that process. And those people are like helping us evolve and build this event. So it becomes they're the ones that are helping us make decisions, and they're the ones that are onboarding and picking sessions and picking artworks, and then bringing on board those people that will lead the sessions at the festival weekend means that they become the face of the festival. Like they're what everyone is interacting with, and they're not going to see me or my team, but they're going to meet these facilitators, and like these facilitators will tell the story of the festival. And so it's very different. It takes a long time to make decisions, and it's a lot of work to build something, but we're building something really powerful because it's got so many different people involved in it, and keeping us accountable and keeping us open, and that's a lot of fun as well.
Like Mozilla, the foundation is it 20 years old? How old is the foundation?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think Mozilla itself is like over 20 years. Yeah.
Okay, and I mean the company, and we don't need to get into the relationship between the foundation and the company, but when the browser started, it was very much had these same ideals philosophies behind it, and it's become quite popular to, well, not popular enough, but it's become more popular to discuss these issues on the internet, or to form a foundation, or to have certain conversations. Something that I think is really unique about Mozilla that I want to learn more about from you is that you do get a large community of people involved. You do have very in-depth research and conversations, but the actual changes that you guys push on even like a monthly or seasonal level, holding Zoom accountable, holding Amazon accountable, seeing changes come from the sort of work that you guys do, I think is quite unique to a very bottom-up driven organization. So how is it that you, I don't know if accountability is the right word. It's like, how has the follow through been so successful at Mozilla compared to other people who like to at least talk about these things? I see a lot of action.
Yeah, I think, like, how we involve the community in a variety of different ways across the organization, within Firefox and building the code and the products, and in our advocacy and our policy pieces is all quite different, but it comes from that aspect of, we are designing for the web that we love, that we should all be part of. And so when we are looking to make decisions or push for changes, we're asking people, well, what are those issues? How is this affecting you on the ground? And then we're asking them, well, join us and help us make that change. So it's kind of being on a journey together, and like inviting people in and to talk about their own work. With MozFest in particular, the success of that kind of open collaboration with predominantly a volunteer network who work, some of them work with us for 6 months of the year, but a part is like, how can their work show up, and how can the work that they do with us advance that work and get an output that they want? And so it could be like that their project, they want to have it on a global scale, but it also could be around, giving space and empowerment to their community, whether it's like running an entire kind of experience or installation or sessions, a series of sessions on queering, what it's like to be queer online, or neurodiversity and neurodivergent communities, giving them a space. How can we help you materialize what matters to you, because we're all heading in the same direction of keeping the web that we know and love open, free, and healthy. And it's that collaboration, but that we're trying to achieve something together that I think brings so much power towards it. And it is the attribution and recognition of all those folks that help us get us there, that the MozFest is nothing without its volunteer network. MozFest is nothing without its wranglers. We are made up of all these different groups who empower us and make us the festival that other people know and love. And I think if we continue to build upon the great ideas that have come before us and acknowledging them, and then knowing that someone else is going to take that idea and make it their own and do an even better job, that is the strength that comes for the festival and ultimately in the Open Society.
Will you talk a little bit about the artificial intelligence focus?
Yes, and so this is a kind of a focus that we've been working on in the last 2 years. So for us, and we see many issues facing our online lives today, and when we've kind of like worked with the community, we realized that we wanted to get more kind of like pointed within those kind of issues, and we were looking at various different like organizations and various new technology and new policies coming down, and we feel that like within AI, there is a lack of transparency, there is a lack of agency, and so can we be part of? How can we support that, and how can we build within it? And so we just literally released a white paper. Mark Sermon shared a blog, and we are looking for critique on that white paper, and we're looking for people to share with that challenges that we see within AI. And so we're just at the start of that work. But I think it's become, there's so much power for us identifying those challenges, because we're identifying it with many different nodes of our community and the internet health movement. And so as we move forward, we're very at the start of that exploration, but as we move forward, we want to ensure that we are capturing kind of the issues that matter most on the ground around this.
And then I guess as a final question, so are you organizing a MozFest? Is that to be determined? I know you were already moving from London to Amsterdam, and it had already shifted from fall to spring.
Yes.
But how are you dealing with the questions of uncertainty and the future of the festival right now?
Yeah, like any event organizer, we're in a definitely unknown situation, and planning for like 2 months, 5 months, even like a year down the line is quite hard. We made the decision as we moved out of our first decade to leave London and move to Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and we then decided in early of 2020 to like change the date, so it made sense for us in a design perspective and for what we wanted to achieve. So right now we are just trying to be as supportive to our allies and our friends working in events who have like had to rapidly prototype events to become an online structure, and seeing different ways we can support them, whether through facilitation tips like platforming, or just help them with some the convening power. We're also in a learning mode, watching. We're all online, and I'm sure we're all tired of all the many colds, but there's also this wonderful sense of playfulness. Like I've seen events run their keynotes in Animal Crossing, and I've seen someone do a festival on Instagram, and you pop around different handles to watch different stories, and so it's a sense of creativity. I think it's really going to help us. It's really going to change the event structure for a wonderful way, but it is a hard time to plan. We are definitely thinking about different scenarios, but we are focused on delivering MozFest in Amsterdam for 2021. We will obviously assess and make sure that we do this as safely as possible, but we're still a long while out, and so we're just kind of taking it step by step, I think, as everyone is within every part of how this pandemic is affecting us.